everyone. I am Audra with Audra Heller and Associates at Keller Williams. Today, I am super excited to have a friend of mine on our podcast. Not only is he a friend, he's a past client of mine, and he happens to be a Missouri state senator. This is his second term. I believe you went into office in 2019. Please help me welcome Tony Luetkmeyer. Thank you, Tony. So, Tony, just some quick things that I would like to tell our guests. So, for all of my MU fans out there, Tony went to undergraduate and law school at MU. His dog Truman, I just found out, is named after the mascot at MU. And Tony lives in Platte County. And as I mentioned, he's the 34th District State Senator, and that covers Buchanan and Platte County. Is that correct, Tony?
Yep, that's right. Buchanan and Platte counties.
Well, excellent, excellent. So you're now serving your second term and super grateful for all of the things that you are doing down in Jeff City for our communities. And wouldn't mind, before we kind of jump into a couple questions that I have and some of our guests have, or our audience has, tell me a little bit more about you. Obviously, Parkville, MU. What else should we know about Tony Luetkmeyer?
Yeah, so I grew up on the eastern side of the state in southeast Missouri in a little town called Farmington. And both my parents and my siblings still live over in Farmington. So I was like the one who moved away whenever I graduated from college and law school at Mizzou. And my wife and I, we moved actually to Parkville in 2013. And Audra, as you mentioned, you sold us our lot that we eventually ended up building our house on there in Parkville, and have just had a tremendous love Parkville. It's just a great place to live, and it's just been a tremendous opportunity to get to serve as the state senator for the 34th district for the last 5 years.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate all that you do. One of the things I was kind of going through, like, what is important? What would our guests and audience want to hear more about? And one of the things I want to know more about is, why did you get involved in politics, Tony? I mean, you became an attorney. Wouldn't it be easier work being an attorney? Or are you still using a lot of that attorney knowledge and experience in Jeff City? Talk to us why you got into politics.
Yeah, so certainly the attorney experience whenever you're writing laws for the state is definitely a helpful thing whenever you're in Jefferson City. I've always had a passion for public service. When I was an undergraduate at Mizzou, I actually ran for and was elected student body president at the university. And it was funny, that's actually how I met my wife, Lucinda. She was managing the opposition campaign against me for student body president when we were in college. And, everything just kind of blossomed from there. This was probably back in 2018. It was right after the governor's race in 2018. And I had some constituents who lived in Platte County and in Buchanan County who reached out and said, the state senator right now is going to be terming out at the end of this year. And maybe you should think about running for the state senate to replace him. And so I thought about that. Had a conversation with Lucinda, and we decided that was something that was right for us at this time. And so that is how I ended up getting involved in politics. I've always had a passion for public service dating back to my time in college, and then had some friends here locally that encouraged me to throw my hat in the ring for the state senate seat.
Wow, I love it. I love it. Well, as one of the agents in the Kansas City area, a lot of my clients are in Platte County and Buchanan County. Talk to me. You passed a bill that related to a senior tax bill. And if anyone's been listening to the news, taxes, again, that's homeowner property taxes, have gone up in different areas. There are some different cities that have lawsuits going on. But talk to me and us really about the senior tax bill that you put into place.
Yeah, so we've seen really skyrocketing real estate assessments all over the state. It's not just limited to Platte County. We've seen it around the Kansas City metro area, Jackson County, Clay County. We've seen it over on the eastern side of the state, over in St. Louis City and County. And so when I was campaigning for re-election this last time around, one of the things that I really like to do is to get out into the community and meet voters. And oftentimes that means knocking on people's doors and kind of meeting them where they are. And one consistent message that I heard from seniors when I was running for re-election is that these out of control property tax assessments, particularly in Platte County, were risking them getting essentially evicted from their home by local government. Most of our seniors, many of them are on fixed incomes. And so when they see a dramatic increase in a fixed cost like their property taxes for their home, some of the times they can't make ends meet. And that's particularly relevant for seniors who I mentioned before are oftentimes on fixed incomes. They can't just simply work more or save differently to be able to pay for those increased taxes. And so what I did is I sponsored a bill this last session called Senate Bill 190. And what it did very simply is it said that when a senior turns 62 or whenever they're eligible for Social Security benefits, whatever their tax assessment at that point in time, whatever they're paying in real estate taxes, it freezes from that point going forward. So it's not saying that they don't pay taxes on their home anymore. It just says that they get a credit going forward so that their tax rate will never increase once they reach the age of Social Security retirement. And so that's what the legislation does. Because of a provision in the state constitution known as the Hancock Amendment, I know a lot of people have probably heard of that, you have to have a local vote in order to freeze the taxes for real estate property taxes. And so it requires a vote, a majority vote of your county commission to actually implement the bill. And if the county commission fails to do that, I put a provision in the bill that actually allows voters to go to the ballot, collect signatures, and enforce that issue in their county if the county commission refuses to take action.
So talk to me about Platte County. How have the commissioners handled this? Is it officially in effect? So if I'm over 62, I'm good?
So unfortunately, thus far, Platte County has not adopted it.
Okay.
Jackson County recently, they have a delayed effective date for, it won't take effect until next year. There are some areas over in St. Louis, St. Charles County, notably Greene County down where Springfield is. Those are some of the larger counties in the states that have adopted Senate Bill 190. I know that Platte County has a working group where they're looking and studying the potential fiscal impact of that measure being adopted in Platte County. And I know that's an ongoing conversation with the county commission. I know at least one of our county commissioners is very supportive of getting this adopted. County. My local county commissioner, Dagmar Wood, has been very outspoken, saying this is some tax relief that we need to bring to our seniors. And so I'm hopeful that in the near term, we're going to see Platte County adopt Senate Bill 190 and bring much needed tax relief to Missouri seniors. The other thing about that bill, which did not require any action, is it had a provision that eliminated the income tax on Social Security benefits. So up until my bill passed, Missouri was one of only 11 states in the country that still tax Social Security income. And my view was, especially as we've seen rapid inflation lately, we need to put more money back in the pockets of Missouri seniors, let them spend their money how they see fit. And that's going to in turn stimulate the economy. And I think everybody benefits from that. So I'm really happy we were able to get that proposal done. And that will take effect this upcoming tax cycle when people file their tax returns.
I love that because so many clients had reached out to me asking for help. And a lot of them are seniors living at Weatherby Lake that they've lived in their home for 30 or 40 years. My grandparents bought their home in the 50s in Platte County in Parkville. And so obviously they're not around anymore, but my parents had the house, and there's several families that have lived in their home for 30, 40 years. And there were clients of mine that I saw because they reached out to me for help of how do I file my taxes because it went up 30% or 40% in Platte County. So it's a huge deal. So for any of you in Platte County, be sure to reach out to your county commissioner. I think it is something that when we are on fixed budgets, when we're at that retirement or Social Security age, it is important not to have a 30% increase on your real estate taxes. Again, not saying that you don't owe taxes, you still owe it, but not those drastic changes on a home that you've lived in for years and that type of thing. So Tony, thanks for fighting that. It really, really does impact our neighbors in our community when they are on fixed budgets. So that is huge. And the last thing, I can't even imagine helping a client sell a home because they can't afford their taxes, property taxes, and their house is paid off. So remember, when you're in your 60s and 70s, several clients of mine, their home is paid off. So these bills are huge. So thank you for fighting for us on those. The other thing that I want you to talk to a little bit more about, and again, a lot of clients that I have who are police officers, this was a huge victory for them. When we're looking for homes that they had to be in Kansas City and they had to only be in this certain area. And if they wanted land or a different school district, for their children. They didn't have a choice because of their job. So, talk to me a little bit about what you were able to pass and help our local Kansas City Police Department police officers.
Yep. Well, Kansas City is, was until very recently, until my bill passed, it was the only municipal police department in the state that had a residency requirement that said that you have to live within the city limits of Kansas City in order to be a police officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And as you pointed out, this places all kinds of restrictions on families. If you have a police officer who has a kid with special needs and they want their kiddo to be in a particular school, they can't necessarily send the kid to the school that they need to go to. A lot of police officers who I spoke with, they wanted to live closer to their parents because they're elderly and maybe they need a little bit of extra care, and having that distance barrier where they're being forced to live in the city, but maybe somebody in their family lives in northern Platte County and they want to be able to provide care to their aging parents. That was a concern. And then of course you have, people be able to move based on, where tax rates are more favorable. If somebody wants to buy a large parcel of land, they want to kind of live out in the country. Kind of difficult to do that within the city limits of Kansas City. There's not a lot of, big parcels of land out there for purchase. And so we were able to pass a bill. This was a couple of years ago now, that removed that requirement for the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And I think what we have seen and what we're going to continue to see is it's really a great tool for the state's largest police department to recruit and retain officers, because we know that there were many officers who were leaving the police department who were very dedicated to their job, but they simply couldn't make it work because of all these life constraints and the limitations that put on them and their families having to live within the city of Kansas City. And so what that bill did is it basically broadened the circumference of where you could live. Now you can live up to 30 miles outside of the city limits in any direction around Kansas City. And that just gives a lot more housing options to our men and women in law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe. And I think the least we can do is give them some say over where they live and where they raise their families.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And again, I know it's a couple years ago, but I wanted to re-hit on it, that topic, just because I feel like it is so important, and so many people in the Northland that we help on the real estate level. Okay, Tony, this question is from my husband, who's from Iowa. And as well as I have cousins who live in the Smithville area who are farmers. So talk to us about what's going on is it anything that we should be concerned about, or are you and your team concerned about foreign buyers coming in and buying up all the land, or farmlands, or farmers getting ready to retire? Should there be restrictions? Shouldn't there? What's going on? Any thought on that, of just, other countries? Again, I'm just going to throw out the big one, China, coming in and buying up all of my neighbor's farmland.
So yes, I am concerned about that. Yes, something needs to be done to limit foreign entities like China from coming in and buying Missouri land, whether it's farmland or any type of property. I mean, the reality is, if you sell off your land to a foreign country that may be an adversary of the United States, you're really losing step by step your sovereignty. Because the reality is, in places like China or Russia, where there's complete government dominance over the entire economy, even if it's a private company in China or Russia that's coming in and buying Missouri farmland, that land at any point in time could be confiscated by the Chinese government, by the Russian government. And we don't want our foreign owning land within the United States. It erodes our national sovereignty, and it's something that we need to put a stop to. So we actually did have a bill last year that passed through the Missouri Senate, passed with broad bipartisan support. I was happy to cast my vote in favor of that legislation that would have prohibited foreign ownership of land. It for various reasons did not make its way through the House of Representatives, and so we have to pass a bill in both chambers of court before it goes to the governor's desk. And so my expectation would be is that issue will come back again this session, and I will also be supportive of it again, as I was last year.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, because it is scary, and even just to hear that the government then can take over based on the structure of government that they have. So thank you for explaining that. I've kind of asked you and hit on a couple questions and things that were near and dear to my heart. Tell us what else is going on. What are you doing in Jeff City? Is there anything else that is coming up in the next session, or that you're working on right now, that you would like our viewers to learn about or hear about?
Yeah, well, the foreign ownership of land is something that I fully expect we'll have debated again this session. One of the things that we've been very focused on as the Republican caucus in the Missouri Senate and the House has talked about this as well, is making sure that we're increasing the threshold for amending the Missouri Constitution. The Missouri Constitution is extremely easy to amend. We refer to this as initiative petition reform or IP reform. And we want voters and we want grassroots organizations to be able to be empowered to amend the state constitution. But what oftentimes happens is you'll have oftentimes liberal out-of-state special interest groups who will come into Missouri and they will spend millions of dollars attempting to change our constitution because they're not able to get a bill through the Missouri General Assembly. And, my view is that the Constitution, any Constitution, is supposed to be a fundamental governing document that outlines the basic framework and structure of government, the people's rights under the Bill of Rights or whatever it may be. It is not intended to be a ever-expanding special interest statute where groups can come in and essentially buy our Constitution. And that's really what it's become in the state of Missouri. And so I'm hopeful that we will get something done on initiative petition reform this year. It is an election year, and I always, caveat any description of what the upcoming session is going to be with this, and that is when it's an election year, there's a lot of antics and theatrics that go on in the General Assembly because people are running for various higher office, and that sometimes makes us a little bit less productive than we otherwise would be. And so I would expect to maybe see a little bit of that this year. I know there's at least 5 of my Senate colleagues who are running for statewide office in 2024. At least as of right now, the Speaker of the House has talked about the possibility of running for lieutenant governor. And so, when you have that many dynamics at play within the Capitol building, it does make it a little bit more cumbersome to get things across the finish line.
Wow, yes. It will be an exciting and big year. Obviously, you hear a lot of that on the news. One question I have is, do you have any control or influence with the feds to reduce interest rates?
We do not. I wish we did. No, I wish we did.
Throw that one in there.
Even Congress, even our federal lawmakers, their ability to influence that is a little bit limited because of the independent structure of the Federal Reserve Commission. But yeah, interest rates are totally out of control right now. It's hard to believe that just a year ago we saw historically low interest rates where everybody was out trying to buy a home, and now we've seen really in many ways people moving more and more towards rentals because the cost of a 30-year or 15-year home loan has just gone through the roof, and people can't afford to build or buy an existing home anymore, and it's a big problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Tony, just on a local level, Kansas City, Missouri passed I'm going to call it I don't know the exact terms, but I believe it's like an energy efficiency bill, and that costs builders $30,000 more. So if any of our guests are thinking about building in the city limits of Kansas City, Missouri, it's a $30,000 increase for these energy efficiency. And, homes are already, so many of them are built so airtight that we're going to get to a point through several builders that have told me this, that they're going to be so airtight that we're going to have to put new fans and different things for the air to go in and out of the house, that they're too airtight. And, that's something that would love, lower interest rates, maybe not as many government regulations on the building, because the thing that we get asked the most are, why aren't there more affordable housing getting built in Platte County? What is affordable housing? And that's something that I think the average in Platte County is around $350,000, $400,000. People straight out of college or high school can't afford a $400,000 home, especially when we're 7% and 8% interest rates. So, yeah.
Well, and you're right. We hear this from builders associations all the time down in Jefferson City. There has been a movement in states to have a standardized statewide building code that preempts individualized city municipal codes, because what oftentimes happens is not only can Kansas City pass some onerous regulation that makes houses way more expensive, but it's different to build a house in Platte City versus Kansas City versus Parkville versus Riverside. And that leads to increased costs because you have different building codes that the same builder is expected to comply with as soon as they cross an artificial boundary and enter into a different municipality. And so it is kind of a mess. And I do think something needs to be done on that.
Well, from a realtor hat, not wearing my friend hat, I'm wearing my real estate hat. if there's anything you can do to help out on that, that is something that, construction costs ever since COVID have gone up, labor costs have gone up. Lumber's gone down a little bit, but now they're just struggling getting people that want to work and skilled labor. So that's been a huge issue in the construction world, at least that I'm aware of in the Clay and Platte County area. So, well, Tony, I know we're getting about to the end of our time. Is there anything else you would like to share with our guests today?
No, I think that pretty well covers it. Appreciate you having me on the show, and certainly for any of your constituents, if they ever have any issues that they need addressed at the State House, I think we can maybe include a link to my website here on the podcast, and my contact information at my Jefferson City office, and I'm certainly happy to help anybody with any issues that they're having here locally in Platte County or up in Buchanan County.
Excellent. Thank you again, Juan, for joining us today. It really is helpful getting your intellectual experience and knowledge and sharing some of the information and how you're really helping people in our own community and not looking just so far away. You're right here, you're walking the streets, you're talking to residents, and that means a lot to us. So thank you for all that you do for Platte County and Buchanan County. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today.